All right, so we are recording. This is Andrea, and this is Julie. Right? Oops, I always forget. There we go. That's Julie. I'm totally mixed match because everything is flip-flopped in here. So we're going to talk a little bit about Juicy Soul Retreat as we just work on our own stuff today. So I'm excited to talk about this. Julie and I have been doing Juicy Soul Retreat since when? What did we ever decide what year that was? 2012, I think it was.
Yeah, that was the guest I had. 2012 was
Yeah.
the year that we had this retreat, and we talked about it, and we were like, we've got to get more people being creative and get people out of the concern for using their stuff.
Right.
And make it be something that can be fun and simple, break it all down so it's not that scary for everybody. And then, we have so much stuff that we have. It's good to get together and use all the things that we've purchased, all the fun stuff.
Exactly. And I think it's so much more fun to be creating together because you just sort of vibe off of each other. And when somebody else is doing something, you're not like thinking so much. I don't know, that sounds kind of funny, but when you're creating in a group, you're not thinking so much about what you're doing. You're just kind of listening to what's going on, listening to the chit chat. And for me, it makes it kind of exciting because you look up and you're like, oh, what did you do? You guys had the same instructions or the same, prompts as I did, and look at what it looks like. And I hadn't thought of trying that. And so, I don't know, it's fun creating in community like that.
It is also because I think I also get distracted. So I'm not as like the inner critic isn't
exactly
so loud because I'm creating and I'm listening and I'm following along, or I'm doing my own thing, but I'm not listening to when I'm, by myself or quiet. Have a tendency to focus and, I don't like that. What's going to happen with that? How's that going to work? So I don't have that same concern.
Yeah, exactly.
Plus, when I take a break, I get to look up and see what somebody else is doing. I get an idea, get some inspiration.
I know.
What people are creating around me.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
That's a lot of fun. So when we started talking about doing this and you started sharing on Instagram, you were getting some questions. But before we get there, you had some questions, and we were talking about just asking each other questions and sort of this blind reveal. Like if I were to ask you a question, I think my first question for you, Julie, would be like, do you have certain colors that you just gravitate towards every time? Is it and to follow up with that, do you find that your colors change depending on the season or, let's just say the season?
Yeah. I don't think that my colors have changed that much. I love bright colors.
Yeah.
I love blending colors together. I particularly love just seeing what will happen. I don't like a lot. When I first started, I've created for a long time, but I remember kind of creating in college and thinking, maybe I would like to be a graphic designer or something like that. And I remember taking formal art classes and having people say, this is the way you do this, and this is perspective. And there were so much rules that I think mostly what I'm looking at when I'm creating is when I'm choosing colors, I'm looking for things that break the rule or just see what's going to happen. Or I'm trying to use combinations that maybe other people wouldn't think to use to just make me happy. So I do have a tendency to gravitate toward bright colors, but I also like contrast.
Yeah.
So I will put bright colors and then add a white. The one color that I don't use a lot of is black. I'm always thinking it's covering up too much, too well. And I like realizing there might be something underneath this that I might want to try. And so if I cover it all up, it's almost like covering it up with gesso, but I'd rather use white gesso than black gesso to cover things up. So I don't really use black that often, but yeah, I usually it doesn't change by season. I usually don't get too influenced by what other people are doing with their, I've tried, thinking, maybe I'll try something else. No.
Yeah.
It always gravitates back to the same ones. So what about you?
Well, that's cool. What you said that really resonated with me was colors that make you happy And there are definitely colors that make me happy. What I'm working on right here has a lot of blues and greens in it, but it has this little pop of orange and sort of corally colors. Those, they just, when they're together, it just makes me happy. So you can definitely, I think you can definitely tell I gravitate towards certain colors. And I used to think that it changed seasonally, but I'm finding that's not so much the case anymore. The longer I work with color, and like you, I like to mix color, and I love that concept, how you described it, of just sort of breaking the rules. And oftentimes when I teach how not to make mud, but then I realized one time when I was teaching, somebody was like thinking that it was wrong to make mud.
Yes.
And it's not wrong to make mud. And one of the things that I say is, like, you know, flowers take mud to grow, right? So, I mean, beautiful things come out of mud, but if you're not looking for muddy colors, I'm here to teach you like some basic concepts that will keep your colors from getting muddy if you don't want them to. But there's nothing wrong with mud. I even have a class called Playing in the Mud, and it's about intentionally making neutralized colors from using complements. So yeah, I love color. I love mixing color. I love complementary colors. So like this blue and the orange just vibrates off of that blue.
Yep.
And that makes me happy. And so like you, like I just gravitate towards things that make me happy.
Yep.
Yep.
That is for sure what I enjoy most. And I like to discover things. I think that's why I also don't like a whole lot of things around rules. I think the way that I teach is just to, you want to explain like what's happening, why things are a certain way, but you kind of swing out, right? So I'm using watercolor brushes for acrylic. I'm using like this. Oh, scary. Oh my God. Someone's going to come take my brushes. So I like being able to kind of I think it's helpful to know what the properties of things are.
Yeah.
Right. So knowing like if you, right now I'm using some kind of, these are wax kind of crayons, but they're not going to cover really well over something that's already wet, but I'm going to know that by playing around with it. Yeah. So I do like to have people just kind of try things and see what happens. But because sometimes you can get a really interesting texture by mixing things that are not supposed to be mixed together.
Yep.
And then you got to deal with, like, sometimes you mix things together that can't stay together, and then how to make them dry, because I've had some things I'll mix and it takes a long time to dry. So I just cover it with that medium. It seems to cover it, end of that.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's clear matte medium.
What happens when ... Yep. Very much so. So that's color. What about,
well, let me ask you a question.
Okay, yeah, you asked me.
Let me ask you a question. So, so like, I always find that, because like right now I've transitioned from work and I'm doing the creative stuff. What do you do to transition from wherever you are to creativity, or like, how does it come about that you think, okay, do you say, oh, I've got this much time, I think I'm going to create, or is there certain things that start happening and you're like, I get the muse starts to strike and I need to get to my table? Like, how do you begin your creative process, or how does that happen?
That is a great question. I struggle with that sometimes, because it is a time thing. Like sometimes I want to get in and start doing something, and then I look at the clock and I'm like, oh, I don't really have time to fully, because I'm afraid I'm going to get into it and then I'm going to have to stop. And so the best thing that I've done is recently I've started these projects, and I just finished one. I'm actually working on it right now. I put a big canvas up on my wall, and I will stand at it and paint for as much or as little time as I have. And sometimes it means I just grab a fine tip black pen and I go and I make some little circles around some dots, and that's it. Sometimes I grab a brush and a bucket of water and some paint, and I paint a bunch on it. And so I think just having things at the ready, like just having it right here beside me or on the wall where I can stand up and, turn some music on and like jam out and just paint a little bit or add some pattern to some background. But Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like I have to trick myself into it, thinking, okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, or it's okay, I can get started and I can just do a little bit. I don't have to have this huge chunk of time set aside. And then sometimes, like I'm on a meeting and I'll just have things at hand. So this is
Mm-hmm.
more than one answer, but I have things at hand right here. And again, I may just sit with a pen and doodle around shapes while I'm listening to a meeting,
Right.
right? That's just
Right.
a little bit of creativity. I can still be listening and engaging and answering questions if I'm in a meeting, but especially now these days on Zoom, nobody can tell that I'm distracted, and I'm also, I mean, but I say I'm not distracted because I don't find it distracting to be adding some little doodles here and there. So I
Right.
just sort of try to incorporate it in everyday like activities, and always have a little bit of something sitting next to me, even if it's just, some paint markers or a brush pen or something.
Mm-hmm.
What about
Yeah.
you?
I do the similar thing. I have actually my art journal is one of the journals that I use to make notes in for work.
Mm-hmm.
So when I get finished, because normally what I was doing was I would like create things and then, at work, and then I would get to the end of a notebook and, throw everything away because I didn't need the notes anymore. But if
Mm-hmm.
I use it as an art journal at the same time, particularly now because we're working from home, so I'm not in the office with my art journal at a meeting because I probably would be distracting for people to look over and see me painting. But it is nice to kind of recycle those books, and so I don't at the moment I'm not keeping books separate from, like I used to have a book for my notes or a book for ideas or a book for art journaling, and I find it now that I need to have them all do everything, and I just kind of change things by size. So this one's a small book. I have another bigger one. So when I want to work bigger, I worked in the bigger one. If I want to work smaller, I work in the small one. Um, so yeah, I try to create as I go, and
Yeah.
not create a time. And the other thing I
Mm-hmm.
think is accessibility. So making sure I'm really, I was thinking today when I was picking up all my stuff, I thought I have all these boxes that have cool little treasures that I use when I travel
Mm-hmm.
and journal, or when I used to travel and journal. And so I have those things at the ready. So now when I want to like just go to my bedroom and create there, like a lot of the same stuff is there. And I think it is nice when you gather up things to like when I sit on my bed and I'm trying to work on stuff, just to use stuff in that box, to really force myself to use what's there, as opposed to like, oh, I need all these supplies, or I need to kind of build another travel journal when I'm ready. I just kind of force myself to say, okay, well, whatever I have in this box is what I'm going to use, and I'm just going to practice,
Mm,
using those things and see where it takes me. Because some of that's the creativity also, is to not be so
absolutely. Yeah.
particular or deciding ahead of time, what you're going to do. What I love about mixed media is there's a freedom to it if you can let
Mm-hmm.
yourself go,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, and if you don't overthink everything. Um, but
That's
I
the
also,
trick.
yeah, that is the trick. And I think even understanding that, everything can change, something like even right now, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm like, look at the screen. I kind of like what's going on here, but over here seems to need more work. And you just keep going, you know?
Right.
And if I didn't like any of this, I just cover it all with white gesso and start all over. Right. So there is no, rules, or there's nothing to kind of get too serious about it.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
It's
Yeah.
just paper.
Exactly.
Just
Right.
paper.
It's not the end of the world. It's
No.
not irreplaceable. It's not like, that's why I love our mediums, is that, working with these mediums is like you said, you can just cover it up with gesso. Sometimes I'll cover it up and then I'll remove some away, and you'll see just like a hint of that. Like if I don't like what's going on here, I can splash some gesso on here and wipe away. And yeah, it's just,
Mhm.
but what you were just saying something about the elegance. Well, I'm
Oop.
interpreting it as the elegance of limitations,
Yeah.
and sort of that the creativity that flows from limiting yourself. Um, yeah,
Yeah. It's just
that totally
sometimes
resonates. Yeah.
like not having so many choices, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, I know that I can get like, I have a bunch of stuff I collect. I love shopping the aisles, particularly when I travel. Oh my gosh, I love going to art supply stores.
Mhm.
when I travel. And there was, I don't know if she'll tune in, but a good friend that Christine and I traveled to Paris for one time, and we went into this beautiful art supply store where all the pigments were powdered pigments and things like
Yeah.
that, and these beautiful apothecary jars, and like I just love seeing stuff like that. So so it's nice not to take your whole art supply thing with you, because once you get where you're going, like if you're
Right.
traveling with it, you might stop in a store and see something you haven't seen it someplace else,
Right.
and add it to there. But if you have everything, it's like, oh, I've already solved this.
Right. Yeah.
Like I have everything. I don't need to get anything. It's like,
It's kind of
no.
like I pack light clothing wise sometimes. Well,
Hmm.
number one, so I can bring more art supplies, but number two, because you just never know when you might want to go shopping for something new. So yeah, totally do that with art supplies as well.
And the other thing that I do too is, like right now, this is super wet.
Mhm.
So I'm going to let this one dry, and I work in multiple books.
That's smart.
So that gives me a chance to kind of create any way that I want and let things dry, and then get back to
Mhm.
stuff when
Mhm.
I want to. This one's good because all the pages like actually come out of the book.
Mhm.
So it allows me to,
Oh yeah, you can work on multiples at a time. That's for
yeah,
sure.
and
That's
then let them
cool.
dry on their own, and you know
Mhm.
but I definitely do backgrounds first, and then I
Mhm.
add ephemera on top of that, and then I do
Mhm.
the embellishing like what you're describing. So these are
Mhm.
all kind of the beginnings of backgrounds, like the first step
Mhm.
for me, you know.
Very cool. Do you have a favorite? Whose turn is it to ask a question?
I
I
think it's you.
Okay. Do you have favorite tools that you always go to, that you always like, man, I may pack light, but I can never go without this specific tool?
I always need a really good glue stick. I
Okay.
like there's something about like a little bit of matte medium or a glue stick or something. I need something like that, and I kind of gravitate towards certain ones, and the one that
Mm-hmm.
I had shared on my channel or Instagram thing about this one that was by Tombow, but I don't think Tomboy or Tombow.
Tombow. Yeah, they don't make it anymore. I think we decided that we liked this Yoo-Hoo as a replacement, this one.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah.
And I think I found like one on another one out there at a store or something like that. They kind of smelled slight. I like the smell of them.
The
That's the
smell
other
of it.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. So that's kind of a bummer when something you really like
Yeah.
disappears. You got to find
Yeah.
another favorite.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's pretty much one. And then of course I don't know who makes these, but I don't know whose brand line this is from, but I love when they make fun brush handles.
Oh
So this
yeah.
one's like pink and it's swirly and girly. I
Yeah, that's
love
fine.
that. I wish they would do more of that. I don't see a lot of that.
Yeah, I don't. I've never seen that, and knowing that I have an art supply store,
I think it
that
was
is a
just like a cheapo brush. It's probably for little girls or something like that, but I just
yeah.
love them. And the bristles are the nice, because I've gone back and forth between buying really expensive brushes, but I'm so
Mhm.
hard on my brushes. I don't wash them the way
Mhm.
I should. I don't take care of them.
Mhm.
So it's better for me to have really cheapo brushes. Um,
Mhm.
and I also mix them. Might do them with paint and then sometimes with glue, which you probably shouldn't do.
Mm.
But when I need something,
Well, they're your brushes.
I'm just like, let me get going. I want to use.
Yeah.
I need to find this special brush just for the blue. I don't have time for that.
Mhm.
The muse is striking. I got to get here. I got to do my thing.
Right. Yeah. And mine is not as much brushes as um, just a really good fine tip black pen. And I'm
Ooh, that's good.
still I'm still sort of fantasizing about having the perfect black pen that's going to go on over anything and everything, like, because I like to work really layered and lots of layers, and sometimes you end up getting a bunch of texture. And my favorite pen that I use most of the time is this. It's like the Micron PN,
Mm-hmm.
but this is a Pigma pen. Um, and it does 90% of the time, and it's pretty inexpensive, but I've been playing more with the Faber-Castell Pitt brush pens,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm kind of digging the fact that they really do go on over top, and they're permanent when they're dry and all that. So That may be, I don't know, things change. But, you know, I can do without the brushes because I always use my fingers and I scrape things and all of that. But
Hmm.
having a good black pen
Yeah, that is true.
is
And also the white paint pens. I do that really create something. You can get started with things. You can, it's easier to write words when you have that great
right.
contrast, a white,
Yeah,
black,
exactly.
you
Yep.
know. I've tried to write with other colors and it really
Mm.
just
Yeah, you can't really,
doesn't
sometimes
happen.
it's, yeah, you can't really see it and all of that. So, yeah.
So what do you like to like when you're getting ready? Are there certain things you like to wear?
That's a great question. All of my clothes are now art clothes because they all have a little bit of paint on them. So I think, which is funny, like I work in an art, like that's what my business is. So I'm in an art supply store. I have no like super fancy clothes, but even my fancier clothes generally have a little bit of gesso or paint on them somewhere. So I feel like I paint a little more with abandon when my clothes are already painty clothes.
Oh, got it.
So if it's not something that's gotten a little bit of paint on it yet, if I have an apron on, and I have an apron that I use, I think you made it for me actually. I have an apron that has like so much paint on the front it will almost stand up by itself. It's so stiff.
Oh yeah, that's a
Um,
good kind. That's a good
right?
one. Yeah.
Yeah. But man, I love painting in that apron because I know that I can just like wipe my hands off on my apron. I don't have to worry about anything and just keep going.
Yeah, I bought a an apron a long time ago and the same thing. It's just completely covered with stuff which I love.
Hmm.
And for my aprons I need to have a pocket because I'm
Yes,
always putting
a
stuff in
hundred
that pocket,
percent.
right? To put a pair
Yes.
of scissors or a pair like, just my scraps, like particularly the ephemera, like if I'm using napkins or I'm using whatever, it's good
Hmm.
to take the scraps and put it in my little pouch. And then when I'm getting near a trash can, then I'll drop everything in there. But I just love that. I
Absolutely.
love a beautiful apron. I don't think people have
Yeah.
spent enough time designing those. I'd like to influence that because
I
you
know,
know
right?
the perfect apron is just makes all the difference.
It does. It
Because
does
I
make
mean
all the
I
difference.
try not to get paint on stuff, so it's really good for me to have like a something that covers
Hmm.
enough in the front so that
Hmm.
if things drop, it doesn't get on the floor, it doesn't get on me or whatever I'm wearing. But I normally wear something that is short sleeve and
Hmm.
then barefoot. I can't have shoes
Barefoot. Oh yeah. Same. What is that? What is that? Even in the studio, I'm like, I literally have to have my shoes tied to my feet so that I don't kick them off because I just always, when I'm in the mode of creating, I don't want shoes on my feet.
Yeah, I don't know either. I feel like it's like freedom.
Yeah.
And I definitely try to avoid sleeves of any sort.
Yeah.
Um, so tank, not usually a tank top because I'm not a fan of my arms, but but
But
a
if
regular short sleeve.
you're creating for you. Like, who cares
Yeah.
what we look like? Like, we need to be comfortable. Yeah, for sure.
I love this little thing that makes dots.
What little thing that makes dots? I'm not watching. Oh yeah, crank. Those are awesome. And then I don't know if I've shown you these or not. I was really hoping we could have them for a Juicy Soul retreat, um, but they're really hard to find right now. These are called
Ooh,
grog markers, and it's the same thing. Um, it puts down. It's like a Dauber bottle.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just
Right.
love it so much.
Yeah.
And I
And you put.
love also that I don't know what kind of paint is in there, but when I put something over it, it doesn't go all the way through. So it creates another, like
Yeah, it's like a
yeah,
resist.
a
Yeah, it's
resist.
like a
Yeah.
resist. Uh-huh. I think it's probably the same as this. I'll have to look for the crink ones then. Maybe we can put something like that in the retreat kit.
Yeah. And I hope
We shall
everybody that
see.
participates understands that they're going to get a little magic kit of stuff
Oh,
to play with,
yeah. That's
you
the
know?
best part. That's the most fun part for me. I mean, I love teaching and I love being with everybody, but curating that kit Make
Mm-hmm.
sure that everybody gets something really special. And I'm so excited for what we've got coming. I've been lining up some sponsors, and our latest sponsor is Stencil Girl. Shout out to
Ooh.
Mary Beth Shaw. Stencil Girl is
Yeah.
sending some awesome goodies for our kits. Everybody's going to get some Stencil Girl stuff. We're super excited about that and very much appreciate Stencil Girl as a sponsor for our retreat.
Yeah, we're really grateful for her.
Yeah.
She's so generous to everybody. I think we all
Yeah.
need a little break. I mean, this has been a tough time,
Yeah.
and I do miss, we can't, I mean, I guess we could get together, but I'm so terrified. So I
Yeah.
feel like this is such a nice way for us to be together.
It
Um,
is. It is. And I think, you know what, Julie, I keep trying to, ever since the beginning of March, I keep trying to focus on the silver lining in this storm. And that's really how I get through the days. It's just like, okay, where's the silver lining today? Okay, where's the silver lining today? And it's really been the opportunity to connect with even more people than would show up for an in-person class.
that's
And so
true.
sometimes, people will look at a retreat in San Jose, California, like we do, and they'll be like, oh man, someday I wish I could. But you know what? You don't have that limitation anymore. It's
That's so,
literally, you can show up in your pajamas in your own home, and there's no travel expense, and there's no, you know, hotel and all that kind of stuff. You can just log on and create with us. And because you were mentioning before, the kits are all inclusive. Everything that you need to use, literally everything you need to use is going to be in the kit.
yep.
So you could just open up the box that we send you, and sit down, make sure you have some rinse water and a palette. Actually, you don't even need a palette because, yeah.
Yeah, we got ideas for that.
Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, they've got something coming. So yeah, I'm super excited for that.
Yeah. And I think what's really nice, because I've had the opportunity to take some classes online and, through Zoom. And what's nice about it for creativity is I'm not conscious of what other people are doing. So I'm not
Yeah.
comparing myself.
Ooh, that's
Right?
a great point.
Yeah, you're not, I just find myself like, it's okay for me to look at what other people are doing and I can do my own thing and I don't have to worry about people, or not necessarily people, but me looking over and being like, oh, I should be over here. Oh, maybe I should try that.
Right. Oh,
It's
that's
just,
such a good point. I hadn't thought about that because, I mean, my quote one year, and it sort of follows as my life quote, is comparison is the thief of joy.
yes.
Comparison is the thief of joy. And so, yeah, sometimes I can totally compare myself to my neighbors. And that's the beauty of doing things on, one of the beautiful things about doing a retreat online like this is that you can certainly share, but you don't have to. It's not
Yeah.
nobody's obligating you to share.
Right.
But you can also just be in your own space and do your own thing
Which is
and
great for
have.
people who are concerned, like who have or either new to this, right? And
Yeah, yeah,
are
for sure.
concerned, like, I don't know how mine's going to look, and we won't be able to see unless you show us. So,
Right,
and we hope you
exactly.
will, and
Yeah, yeah,
all that sort of thing. But if you don't want to, you can actually just enjoy yourself and try things,
exactly.
you know. And I think we'll have, breaks for people to, grab lunch. And so, there'll be times for people to kind of step away if they need to. I mean, you can get up and stretch. Obviously, you're at home when you feel like you need to move around, you can do that. And sometimes when we're working in the studio, people, they get so excited about what's happening, they forget to move around, but
Yeah.
because it's important.
We will prompt you. And the other thing is we're going to be recording all of it. So even if you need to get up, let's say, oh man, I have a 2-hour obligation in the middle of this. I know it's going to be sad. You're going to have to walk away from this for a minute, but you're not going to miss out. You're not going to not have access to what it was that we were doing while you were gone. So you can always watch the recording. It's not the same as being there exactly in the moment, but just so people know. And that's again another silver lining, right? If you were attending a retreat and you're like, oh, but I've got to go to this this family meeting, and
Right.
I can't miss, right?
Right.
You just have to miss the whole retreat, but this makes it really easy for you to still be able to participate.
Yep. And I think, did I catch that? You were talking about the recording too, that you can,
Yeah.
listen to it later. Yeah.
Yeah. be able to watch everything and replay things. Because I don't know about you, but when I hear something the first time, I'm only catching like the first portion of it. Maybe I'm listening to instructors, the teacher's instructions, and I hear the first two things, and then my mind gets going on, okay, so I'm going to do this and this, and then the teacher's going on, and they're like, okay, and then this and this and this, and all I heard is the first two things, and so then I'm like, wait, what was that?
That's true.
Actually, I experience that a lot as a teacher too. So I try to be mindful of not giving too many steps of instructions, but in case I do, it's all going to be recorded so you can watch it again. And I promise, like, that the second time you watch it, you're going to be like, she didn't say that the first time.
Yes, that happens.
That totally happens.
Or even like remembering, I know I used to get caught up in like, oh, what did they say they used? Or what was that thing? And it's like, oh, I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to make notes, because the recording is going to be there. And plus we're going to provide all that for people.
Absolutely. Yep.
So it's lovely.
Yeah.
And I often mix mediums together. Like I use really expensive, what do you call art supplies, like some like the Goldens, like those kind of things, and also the craft paint ones. The ones with craft paint ones I find really helpful for doing backgrounds because they're matte, and I have less of them kind of sticking together, the pages sticking, which drives me nuts. But I also like the rip. I'm okay with the tear. Yeah, the little hole it makes if it rips. But if I don't like that, I like I think the matte finish on kind of really inexpensive paints are really, really nice. Mm-hmm. Use them to your advantage. There is a purpose, a place and a purpose for them in art journaling. So everything can be used. So you don't have to have expensive supplies to do all this stuff, right? Like you just. Yeah. So true. When did you start creating? Have you always been creating stuff? I have always been creative, I think, but as far as like what we're doing now, this sort of thing is sort of just morphed. I started more in the scrapbooking world back when my kids were born, so like 95, 96, 97. And then discovered mixed media in about 2000, maybe. Maybe later. Man, I just lose track of time. I know. I really, like, you asked me when something was, and I was still doing scrapbooking in 2000, but somebody walked into my studio with a cloth paper scissors magazine, and oh my word, my head just about exploded. I thought, what is this beauty? And I cannot believe that I didn't know about this before. And then discovering mixed media and the fact that I could use a lot of the supplies that I had with scrapbooking and card making and things like that, I could use in some way, shape, or form in altered books and artist trading cards and things like that is really where I kind of got started with mixed media. And then it just morphed from there. Yep. What about you? I've been creating for a long time. My dad had an art studio at the Torpedo Factory in Virginia. And so on weekends, we would go to his studio. He tried to escape, actually. He was like, I'm going to leave you kids at home. And then my mom would be like, nope, take one of them with you. So, so we would go, and it's so funny. I've been back there and it smells the same. There's the smell of all the art supplies, and there was a lot of silkscreen artists, and I guess that paint has like a really unique kind of smell. And so I've always been around creativity. I love that, being around all that kind of creative stuff and how you make things. So I've been creating for a long time. But I think that when, as I mentioned, like when I went to college, I thought, maybe I'll do this for a living. And I realized quickly, like, I don't want to do this for a living because I don't want to have to make it. I want to be able to choose to make it when I feel like it. The idea at the time, they used to do the weekend paper for different grocery stores. And I thought, and my idea of what artists did was to draw the fruit. Do you know,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you can buy like fruit, they draw like an apple or an orange or whatever, 39 cents a pound, whatever it was. And so in my mind, that was what my life was going to be like. And so I thought, I don't, if someone has to make me draw bananas, that's going to upset me. So I kind of came out of it. And then I stopped creating for a while because in college, I heard there was a lot of rules. So I wasn't really comfortable with that. And that didn't seem like fun. But then I think I had I'd worked for a company for a while, and then there was a little bit of a break because the company closed, and, I had a bit of a time that I could kind of do what I wanted to do before I took on the next project. And I just started creating on my patio. Like one day I just grabbed some supplies, and it's something like, it felt like everything opened up, like, oh, all my creativity just came flowing through. And I remember that night being up to almost, 2 or 3 in the morning, just creating. And I've been like that ever since. It'll hit me like there's something that I want to try. And then I keep going. But I would say that for me, creativity is about freedom. So that's why it wasn't appealing to me when I thought about doing it for a career, because I'm sure people that do it for a career have a different point of view about it. But at the time, my relationship to it was, I'm not going to have freedom to create the stuff that I want to create. So I made the decision not to go at a career, which gave me the freedom just to choose to do it when I felt like it. And that's, and just that feeling of creativity or freedom has me create more. The more that I really struggle with commissions because of that too. So I feel like, ooh, I don't know what they like it, what they don't like it. So I like creating things and having people explore what I've created. It's hard. I've done commissions before, but I rarely take them because I'd rather people kind of choose something that comes natural, organically for me.
That totally makes sense. Yeah. When I was in scrapbooking, when I did that, I would make scrapbooks for other people, and it was very lucrative, but it got to the point where it just was not where my joy was.
Yeah.
And I realized that I needed to pursue things that were in alignment with what brought me joy. And that's when this stopped feeling like work,
Yeah. That's so nice when that comes about that way.
Yeah.
When it's not work,
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also think that, when I'm creating, like I think about even now, at the beginning of the creative process, it feels like when I'm starting a brand new pen, how you have to kind of like rub it back and forth on a piece of paper before it starts going.
So true, right? Yeah.
So this one is really like, at the beginning, I'm doing whatever I'm doing. And then there's a moment where something clicks.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to dig what's happening. And I just keep, and that's kind of the sweet spot.
Yeah.
But the more that I don't think about it, the better. As I said, that's one of the good things about kind of creating in a community like this, is that, in other situations, maybe someone will come by and go, oh, I like that. And that makes you feel scared. Like, maybe I shouldn't change that.
Shouldn't mess it up. Oh, I don't
like,
want to mess it up.
I don't want to mess it up. They like that. It's probably a good thing. Like, maybe I should leave it alone, as opposed to like, no, my feeling, I don't know where this is going. And I don't feel like I'm done with what I'm doing here. So let me just keep following that.
Right. And don't you find that if somebody comes by and says to your neighbor, oh, I like that, then you're like, oh, did they not like mine? Like, what? Oh, maybe that's just me. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But I'm like,
Yeah. I probably have that feeling. I think, as I said, because my relationship to it is like, I don't want people to, I prefer people not to say anything. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it puts stuff in my space. It just puts things in my space that I don't want there. I just want to, there's lots of things I do in life that require me to get people's opinions. And I don't need this to be one of them, So I just need the freedom.
Yeah. Well, that is what Juicy Soul Retreat is all about, is that just the freedom to create, and like everything else that we've been talking about, just making it an approachable practice of just little bits at a time, and sort of banishing that fear of facing the blank page and what do you do with this and how do you get started, and
Yeah.
you know. Yeah.
And I also feel like when people have finished going, they've completed the Juicy Soul retreat, I find that, I mean, the feedback I'm getting is that people are more creative after also. So
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't just stop with, it's kind of
Right.
like this really good jump start.
Yes.
Um, and in this forum, we'll be able to keep in contact through Instagram and other places, so we can see what each other's creating and
Mm-hmm.
continue that process. So I do really like the fact that it's a chance to kind of jumpstart creativity. So if people have been feeling blocked or stuck,
Yeah.
this kind of unstucks people.
Unstuck. Yes, indeed. It unstucks people for sure. We just made that up,
Yeah,
but
we
yes,
just made
it's
that. I'm
for
just making
sure.
up words. Look at all this creativity. Just
Is this all
language
right?
and everything.
Yeah. Who needs language?
No.
Yeah. So I totally get that, and it does have the tendency to the more you push through that resistance, the more you see there's just this like beautiful flow on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just such a great experience. And I think that for me, it's addictive. It's like, ooh, once I get a little bit of that, I'm like, ooh, I made that. I want to do it again. Like I just finished this painting on my wall, and there were some struggles. I'm not gonna lie. There were some times where I'm like, oh, I don't wanna mess it up. I don't like all these things were coming up, just to push through. But because I had set myself this goal of painting on it for 30 days, I had to follow through with that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And well, I mean, I didn't have to. Nobody was nobody was telling me I
But
had to,
you
but
said,
I said I had to do that. And when I was done with it, I almost, and I still do, kind of feel a little bit in mourning over the fact that it was done and I didn't have that. And so immediately I put another canvas up on my wall because I am addicted to the process of doing a little bit every day. And
yes.
I'm still touching it, right? This is still a big, huge painting that was on my wall. And so I'm still working with it. But as I'm finishing it up, because these pieces are for sale now, the little portfolios that I'm making, but until it's done, like I have to have something in the ready. And I think that that's the way Juicy Soul is too. We tend to get done with the day or the weekend that we do it, and we're like, Monday morning we're a little bit in mourning because we had this beautiful creative time. But what I hope that we can do, Julie and I, what we can do is get you prepared to start your week with creativity every day. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to just be a step aside, time that you take and retreat, but that we can inspire you guys to live a creative life every day, a little bit every day, even if it's, while the kids are eating breakfast, you've got a pen out and you're making some marks on your work or something like that. Like it can be fit into lots of different places.
Yeah, that is really nice for people to have that. And you're right, the everyday practice
Mm-hmm.
of creating something, even if it's tiny. So
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks ago or a week ago, I did like how I do my weekly journals
Mm-hmm.
every day. And I can tell you, like I create, but to actually create, film it, and then share it was a thing. But I committed to doing that, and it was
Yeah.
the best thing ever. And I found myself
Right.
like, oh, I can't wait to do another page. So maybe
Yeah.
it's kind of a daunting task. So I think maybe once a month or something like that. But
Uh-huh.
it was a good chance, and I felt like my intention there was so people kept saying like, I don't know how to start, or I've got these journals I've been sitting on, but I haven't really used them. I'm thinking, gosh, you got to use this stuff. Like you spend
Right. Right. Yeah.
good money on these things, and it's time to bust them out. And I know people get intimidated by the blank page and get worried about messing something up, but it is
Mm-hmm.
a piece of paper. You can
Mm-hmm.
cover it if you need to. It is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But it's doing you no good not doing anything with it. So might as well
Right.
put something on there, paint or stories, or start something, some squiggles,
Right.
crayons, whatever you got.
You just said something that totally reminded me of something that one of my students said recently. Like she's afraid of using her, and she's a customer of mine, so she buys things, so I know she has supplies. She says she's afraid of using them because she's afraid of doing it wrong, and then the supplies are going to be wasted.
Ah, that's classic.
Right?
Yeah. No, it's
And I
every
think
like classic in
it's
the sense that
a
people have
classic.
this.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And she's not alone in that feeling. And yet, like, I don't know, I find, and I know you're in the same line of belief, like, it's our mission to say, you're not going to mess it up. Like, even if you don't like it, it's the experience of creating it.
Yeah.
It's the process of getting in there and doing it. Even if at the end of the day you're like, oh, that looks like garbage. Like, hopefully you won't. Hopefully you'll sort of, get through that to the point where you don't talk to yourself like that. But even if you do, let's just be real. Like, sometimes I have those days and I'm like, oh, yuck. It's not wasted. It's
No.
not wasted because it's the process of doing it, and it's the layers upon layers upon layers is what makes this really rich. I mean, especially in what we're doing, this mixed media art journaling or mixed media artwork in general. It's the layers upon layers upon layers. So I say, goodness sakes, get in there and have fun and do it and try it and play with it and just appreciate, like, being in the moment, like having paint on your hands and
Yeah.
having your stencils all worn in with paint on them. And
Yeah. I think to me, I think what you're pointing to is this for me feels like a meditative practice, like,
yeah.
to be still for a minute and create. And, but I also think, like, I think it gives me, so kind of battling the critic gives me an opportunity outside of this to also battle my own concerns about something I'm doing, where it's not, art related. It's just, making decisions in life or whatever. You start being able to say, like, just like in a canvas or whatever I'm painting, I can cover it over. Sometimes things can be covered over, or it's not that big of a deal. Just decide it and then see what happens.
Yeah.
So I find it to be really helpful to reminding myself to be more flexible.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And it makes me a better problem solver in other areas, because if I make a problem for myself because I, mix some colors that make mud, well then, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do now? What are the solutions? And it sort of trains these synapses in my brain to, like, figure out a solution. And like you said, it's like totally translatable to other problems in my life. Like, if I can get through how to cover something up that I don't like in this, then I can figure out, other things elsewhere. Yeah. Great point. Life lessons a la mixed media art.
Yes, you think you're just painting something, but no, this is going to apply to your life, and you'll find yourself not being so concerned for wasting anything. You start using stuff. Use the fine china. You're at home. Use the glasses. Use all the stuff. What's this stuff that's only for special occasions? How about this is a special occasion? Use it now.
Absolutely.
How about this is a special occasion? This moment.
Yeah.
Use your stuff. And I've been trying to use a lot of, there are certain things that I love using, and I use it all the time. And so it's fluid and it's not caked up or whatever. And it's just helpful for me to keep pulling things that I don't use, so to keep them circulating, so that I don't have paints that are dry or brushes that, have not been used for a while. I try to circulate everything.
That's a great point. I do that on the big canvases too. Because the lower layers, I know I'm not so attached to. I know there's going to be like 29 more days that I'm working on these canvases. So I will pull out the paint, the bottom of the bottle, or the, paints that haven't even been used yet. I'm like, well, why have I not used this? So just get them up there and spread them out, and know that it's probably going to be covered up anyway. So just go for it.
So true. See all these little life lessons.
I know. That's awesome.
Who knew?
Well, that's awesome. So I don't know if we're gonna, I think we're gonna, are we gonna, am I going to edit this into a bunch of little videos, or are we gonna do this again, or what should we do?
Maybe we should see the response. I don't know. We'll see what people want to hear. I think we kind of want to be brave and do a live at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
As soon as we can figure it out,
Absolutely.
But maybe it is. Maybe some little snippets to see. what people want to hear.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've had a good time creating with you.
I know. Same here. I think this will be fun to wrap up. I'll see how much time. I don't know. Let's see. How much time have we been recording?
My guess is 20 minutes. No, what is
Okay.
it? An hour? How long? I'm
Oh,
guessing.
I have no idea. Okay. Well, why don't we, we're not going to stop, Jill. You and I will stay on together, but I'm going to say goodbye to the recording. Goodbye to the recording.
Bye, guys.
We're going to stop this for now. We hope you join us for Juicy Soul Retreat. The next one that's coming up is August 29 and 30. And then we also have another opportunity in November. It's November 6th and 7th. And if you go to aworkofheart.com, and look under events, you will find the virtual retreats page, and you can see all of the information there and sign up there. And we hope we see you at one of our wonderful events. And if we don't, we hope you spend a little bit of time creating today. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.